Collingwood.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you for attending the Clearview Chamber of Commerce All Candidates meeting this evening. My name is Sean Davidson, and I've been asked by the Executive Committee of the Chamber to moderate this evening's meeting. The format of this evening's meeting is not a debate. Rather, each candidate will have an exclusive opportunity to speak to you, the electorate, to provide their position and provide you with insight into their skill set. The Chamber has taken questions from the community that have been previously submitted that I will address to the candidates as applicable this evening. Following the formal program, the candidates will remain here in the hall for an opportunity to speak with you personally, as many of you have done prior to this time. I'd ask a reminder of those in attendance, both the candidates and members of the public, that if you have your cell phone on you, please ensure that it is in the silent mode. I'd like to thank the Chamber on behalf of the community for hosting this event tonight. I'd like to thank Cooper Rentals for donating the use of the sound system as well as the lighted timing device. Stainer Foodland for donating the supply of water, and the Township of Clearview for providing this facility. I'd also like to note that Madison from Rogers TV is present and is recording this event for a future broadcast.
To do that,
She's promised me that it'll be before October 24th. So advanced voting for the election on October 24th for Municipal and School Board opens at 10 a.m. on Monday, October the 3rd. Clearview residents should soon start to receive their voter letters, which were mailed out this past week, containing their unique voter ID and personal identification number. Voters in Clearview Township have the option to cast their vote in one of two ways: through internet voting from the comfort of your own home or anywhere you can access the internet, or in person using traditional ballots at one of 4 advanced voting days. Internet voting opens at 10 a.m. on October 3rd and is available at any time up to 8 p.m. on Monday, October 24th. All the information needed to cast that vote through internet voting is contained in the voter letter. Traditional ballots will be accepted only on the following advanced voting days: October the 8th from 10 to 3 at the Clearview Administration Center, October the 12th from 4:30 to 7 at the Clearview Administration Center, October 15th from 10 to 3 at the Clearview Community Church Nottawa campus, 20 Bateau Road, and October 16th from 10 to 3 at the Creemore Arena and Community Center. Voting by traditional ballot will not be available on Election Day. All the information needed to cast a vote through the traditional ballot is contained in the voter letter you will get in the mail as well. We are pleased that there is a race for each ward and for the deputy mayor position. We're also pleased that a number of the school board trustee candidates have taken the time to be here this evening. Trustee candidates Brandy Rafiq, Sean Cooper, Douglas Yeaman, and Heather Eby are here this evening, and I encourage you to take some time to speak with them following our formal program. We're going to begin our proceedings by introducing Mayor Doug Measures. Mayor Measures was uncontested for re-election and will continue to lead council over the next 4 years. And I've offered to ask him to provide a brief comment. Doug?
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sean. Hello, everyone. Again, thank you very much to the Chamber for inviting me and asking me to speak. I am very, very grateful, obviously, to the citizens of Clearview Township and to the electorate who showed confidence that I can continue as your mayor, and it was very humbling, believe me, to realize that I was acclaimed. It is indeed a lot of work being the mayor. I'm very happy to continue to do the work. As you all know, and you've probably seen, I am very much available. I'm in my office a lot. I'm available by phone, and I'm right here to help answer any questions for you if you want to talk to me later on as well. So again, I'm very, very humbled and very, very appreciative that I was acclaimed. I must say, Clearview Township is changing and is growing. And Clearview Township is Clearview Township. Clearview Township is not just our little beautiful hamlets and villages and crossroads. Clearview Township is the entire township. And that is what I've been speaking about for the last 4 years as your mayor, and previous to that as a councillor. Clearview Township is really important that we continue to talk about the whole township. It's all one place. We are all neighbors. We all live in the same place called Clearview Township. And that's what we should remember. And I'm really hopeful that when you select a council, that councillors will remember that when they get elected, they serve all of Clearview Township. All of Clearview Township is important. It's very important to represent your wards as individual councillors, absolutely. However, decisions that are made at the council table are relevant to the entire township, and I make sure that all of our candidates know that and understand that. It's very important to understand that you have to work together, you have to build a camaraderie. You can vote any way you wish, but you remember, we're at a table where we have to work together and respect each other. That's what council does. I'm really hopeful that we're going to have a great term this time. It's been a rotten term this year, as we can see with all of the things that have happened with the COVID, etc. But to be quite honest, we're going to have a great term because the future is looking great for Clearview. Again, I'm really grateful to be here tonight. Sorry to take up some time, but I want to wish all the best to all the candidates. And I put it to you as the voters to get out there and vote us a great council for this term. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Doug, and I wish you continued success during this next term of council. We're going to begin the presentations from each candidate. We'll be starting with the ward candidates in order of wards, beginning with Ward 1 and moving through to Ward 2, etc. The candidates have drawn a random number to select the order for the presentation. A reminder to the candidates, which has been distributed to you in your invitation letter to join us. As ward councillors, or ward candidates, you have 3 minutes. At the 2:45 mark, the yellow light will come on. At the 3-minute mark, the red light will come on, and your microphone will be turned off. Okay. So if we can make that, it will bring me some satisfaction in turning off your microphone, so please don't make me have to do that. There are 2 wireless microphones. We're going to share them amongst yourselves as we move along. So we are going to start with comments from our Ward 1 candidates, beginning with Phyllis Dineen, and then second by Laura Dockery Perry. So Phyllis,
Sean,
you get to go first.
thank you.
How happy are you about that?
Can I turn it off? Okay, that works. So you talked about skill set, Sean. It's not on?
It's on. You just got to put it close to your mouth. Okay, we'll stop and we'll let you start over.
Oh, don't. It's not going to take me 3 minutes. You talked about skill set. I'm not sure about skill set. Anyway, I want to welcome all of the residents and thank the Chamber of Commerce for having this evening. As you know now, I'm Phyllis Dineen. I am the incumbent Ward 1 councillor for Clearview. Skill set, well, I've been a realtor since 1998. My family's lived in Clearview Township for over 50 years. My husband, Kevin, and I have 2 sons, and our grandchildren attend Ottawa Public School. If elected, I intend to continue to listen to people's concerns and ideas, act where I can, and make informed decisions about matters at council. I'm running again to give back to my community and my fellow residents of Clearview Township. Someone asked me about diversity. In Clearview Township, everyone has the right to be heard and accepted. We believe in our communities and support our neighbors. As far as things that I'd like to see happen, I feel our tax base needs to be stimulated with growth, but not at the expense of our residents. I'd like to see more resources for older residents as well, just to address them so they can continue to live in their own communities. And I truly believe that people who travel our roads every day, as well as those just passing through, deserve to do so safely. Moving ahead, I just want to look forward to working towards maintaining the integrity and quality of life in our communities within Clearview Township, and will continue to advocate for our residents. Thank you. How'd I do, Sean? How'd I do, Sean?
Sean, can we have them stand up so people at the back can see who's speaking, please?
Sure.
Would you like me to stand up now? I can wave.
You can do that.
Yes, Debbie. Like this, like one like this?
Well, just a stand so that people aren't following the microphone.
Do you want it?
Well, I will.
Karaoke's later. Okay, well, thank you, Phyllis. Next is Laura Dockery-Perry.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight to visit with us and get to know us. My name is Laura Dockery-Perry. I am a 25-year retired financial advisor, which I hope is going to be a great benefit to the council. So my main thing is I want to hear from you, so I will be here for you. I will have an open door concept. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns, because I'm working for you. What you need and what you want is what needs to be done. I've been out talking to quite a few people, and my main thing is what I have heard from you. One of my main things is I like the word why. So if someone wants something, and maybe necessarily it's not going to work, but you need to give them a reason why it won't work, and then possibly there's a solution that we here in the municipality cannot cover, but we know who to call because we need to know why it can't be done. These are the things I've heard and will be my 12 points while I'm in office if elected. Safety, big deal in our community. Speed limits, larger stop signs would come in handy, crosswalks. And one thing I like very much that's at the corner fairgrounds, it's called a rumble strip. So rather than putting in a speed bump, we have a rumble strip. Water and growth, making sure that we have enough water with all our growth and that our water sources are protected. Our trails and parks, I'd like to see our green lands preserved. Improving possible splash pads or maybe some rinks. I'd like to see the small halls festivals and accessibility dealt with. We do have accessibility programs that are on their way. However, they have very healthy budgets, and I'd like to make sure we get a lot of bang for our buck. As far as budgeting goes as well, we usually start the budget as one of the first things we do, and I, as a financial representative, would love to just dig in. The Niagara Escarpment needs to be preserved. Infrastructure, I would like somewhere that I could buy socks, etc. We have to go out of our community to go shopping. Bicycles, of course, are a big concern. That needs to be discussed. Housing, bringing in housing like Huron Meadows and creating something that will give our seniors better opportunity to stay home and have healthy, independent lives. One thing I know I'm going to get asked, and I might as well let you know right now, is leave 91 open. And I'd also like to get into seniors and youth programs through.
I should also mention, as this is the first election in Clearview Township where the wards have been reduced to 5, and as such, the boundaries have changed for those wards. The map is available on the Clearview Township website, but Ward 1 is essentially the Nottawa area south to the northern section of Singhampton. So it is a fairly large rural ward with the village of Nottawa in there as well. Moving on to Ward 2, our speakers are Robert Mcarthur and Tom Patterson. Ward 2 encompasses Singhampton, Glen Huron, Dunedin, Creemore, as well as Avening. And Robert, you are first to speak.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, fellow candidates, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Mccourt, and I look totally forward to being your next councillor for Ward 2. I've lived my entire 59 years at Cashtown Corners running the family farm, which has now been in our family for over 100 years. We raise cattle, crops, and even some prize-winning Belgian horses. I also worked for Reinhardt Foods for 26 years here in Stayner, one of the township's largest employers, and a great community partner as far as I'm concerned. With realignment of wards in Clearview, Ward 2 is now the biggest, covering over 15,000 hectares. I've either farmed, visited, drove over, or, heaven's sakes, even snowmobiled over most of them. And I think it's the most beautiful ward in the whole township. The uniqueness, though, of Ward 2 has made it a very diverse community, from grassroots farmers to quaint little shops to the businesses that employs hundreds of locals, residents, to a retirement destination. I've noticed this saying on Clearview Fire Station number 4, where I served for many years. It says, people are scared of two things, change and the way things are. Yes, we love our community and the way it is, but as we've all seen in the last couple of years, the world is changing so fast, it's hard to keep up. My goal as your councillor is to earn the respect of every single constituent. I believe there is no issue that us as neighbors and friends cannot find common ground. Local issues need to be resolved locally, not by a study done by someone 100 miles away. The infrastructure of Clearview has been questioned a lot lately and needs to be our main focus. That horrible speed bump on River Road, or some may call it traffic calming device, needs to be repaired. I've drove over it all my life. The corner of Centerline Road and County Road 9 has seen an accident pretty near every weekend this summer, because I hear the fire trucks go by. So I need to continue the narrative. I know there's been a lot of talk, and we need to come to a resolution, as some of my other candidates here will agree with. Affordable housing is another and high concern in our township. We hear this concern from all levels of government. This is not a project that can be handled by our township alone, and we must advocate for funds from other levels. I also feel the village of Creemore is in need of a retirement complex, and I can think of a few now vacant properties that could accommodate this. As I look forward to 23 in the budget, it'll be a big deal with the high cost of doing business. So in closing, I'd like to quote Winston Churchill, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen."
Thank you, Robert. Tom Patterson.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for all of you attending tonight, and the chamber for putting the all candidates meeting on. And I was going to start off by saying that I've been on council since 2006, but I see that some of the councillors that used to be predating me are here as well, and any other councillors that served with Clearview in the past, I want to thank them for doing what they did to build the community that we have, and hope we can carry on that tradition. If elected, I will continue to use my experience to seek out and to listen to all your issues, as I've done in the past. I firmly believe that the public, you people, need to be more engaged at the beginning of the township's decision-making process. More public engagement is something that will improve our decision-making. I care, as everyone else does, for our community. These are challenging times. The cost of housing, personal goods, municipal services are all rising. More than ever, the public wants to know that Clearview Township will provide accountable municipal spending. The challenge is that there are immediate needs that we need to look after. We need to upgrade our urban areas, the streets, the sidewalks, the stormwater drainage. Our rural roads and bridges need to be designed and maintained at a higher level of service. All our roads need to continue to be safe for farm, resident, and business use, as the ever-increasing volume plays havoc with them, quite frankly. We also need a mix of affordable housing, social and senior housing, that meets the different needs of all the local and newcomers coming to Creemore. Our climate is changing. We need a sustainable climate action plan that is well-defined, prioritized, and funded to protect our families, our farms, our jobs, our property, and from the unprecedented weather events that we're already starting to feel. We need to expand our current public transit system to an on-demand Uber-like service for those that aren't served currently by our bus service. Main Street and Mill Street need an increased level of service support from our existing businesses. And finally, to accomplish all of this, we need a long-term financial plan that prioritizes the spending of the revenue we expect from our new residential development.
Thank you, Tom. Next are our three Ward 3 candidates. Ward 3 encompasses the northern side of Stayner, Highway 26 being the dividing line, and Sunnydale Corners to the boundaries of Wasaga and Springwater. Our first candidate to address us is Mccourt.
Hi guys, my name is Mccourt. I've been here for 20 plus years now and running businesses here. And the things I like to change in Township here is the safety of the individual and the safety of the kids first. Since COVID started, around 285 people have died because of opioid in Township here, or the Simcoe Muskoka Herd. And with COVID, only 500 people so far, up to date now. But we're not doing anything for that. We have to act accordingly, and hopefully we will conquer that issue there. At the same time, we do need the children safety, like the sidewalk crossing at the corner of North Street and 26 there. Same thing as well as on 26 and where the park is for the farmers market in that area, the TD Bank area there. And I want to have that Township of Clearview to be more business oriented too. At the same time, we should be more business friendly there. Yes, we're growing, but we have to see what needs are required here. And do we have the adequate environment there or no? And at the same time, not much there going on there, but we have to go with the growth there. And within the environment saving and everything is allowed there too. So that's all. If you have any question, you can shoot at me later on there.
Thank you, Mccourt. Next is Richard Paul.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight. For those who don't know me, my name's Richard Paul, otherwise known as one of Jimmy's boys, or Howard or JD's grandson for some of you. I know I'm probably dating myself. I'm running, or standing in my case, I'm wearing 2 walking casts, for Ward 3 Councillor of Clearview Township. I'm a hometown boy, born and raised here in Stayner, as were 5 generations of my family before me. I'm a Byng Public School and SCI alumni, went to Georgian College and got a business accounting degree or diploma. I'm a small business owner of bookkeeping and an income tax preparation company. I got married in Stayner to my lovely wife, who I had to import from the big city, Honest. That's how she describes herself. She jokes to her big city family that because my family has been here for so many generations, there's no one left in this town for me to marry that I wasn't related to already. We have a teenage son, 2 cats, and a 5-month-old puppy. I decided to run for council because I desire to do what I can to improve the township where I was born and raised. I believe it's time for a younger generation to take an interest in the running of the township and its future. I have 3 areas that I'd like to improve. Better fiscal responsibility, including better cash flow and resource management, by getting a more diverse tax base through industry and business, and work towards getting a share of the casino money that's north of us. Communication and transparency, better use of social media and news outlets to improve communication in this township. Number 3, revamping the township operations slightly, which may include improved accessibility to bylaw officers, improving some recreational program, especially for the youth and family. Although these are ways I can see that the township can improve, I still want to hear from both sides on all issues. I want to ensure the work I do represents what I feel is the majority of what this ward and township would want. I believe we should work together as neighbors and fellow residents of Clearview to fulfill our township motto: beautiful landscapes, friendly people.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Raven Reads. Unbox Indigenous voices. Subscribe today at ravenreads.org.
Hi, I'm Lise Mccourt, the president of the RVH Auxiliary. Although we can't be there in person right now, the volunteers, the people that you see in the blue vests, continue to raise funds for RVH. We've been a fundraising force for RVH for over 125 years, having raised $12 million in the past 12 years. The Auxiliary continues this work with our most recent pledge of $5 million. All proceeds go to patient care at RVH. Our jackpot draws will be held monthly with early bird prizes for each draw. In our first jackpot draw, the winner took home over $36,000. The early bird prizes include a combination of cash and gift cards supporting local businesses. The Auxiliary raises funds to help ensure that when our loved ones need care, they have the best available right here in our region. So buy your tickets early and don't miss out on your chance to win.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
So Mr. John Broderick.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy lives to be here this evening. I hope you find it worthwhile. I would also like to thank Clearview Chamber of Commerce for making this evening possible. How's this? For those who don't yet know me, my name is John Broderick. My wife, Rhonda, right here in the front row, and I have owned and operated J&R Cycle since 1979, which has been at its present location since 1982. We have 3 daughters who were all born at Collingwood General and Marine Hospital and raised here in Clearview. I've been the counselor for Ward 3 for the past 4 years, and with your approval, will continue to represent the best interests of Clearview Township and all of its residents in planned growth and greater good. At this time, I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate Mayor Measures on his acclamation and thank him for his thoughtful leadership. To my colleagues who are retiring from this political arena, Deputy Mayor Burton, Councillors Leishman, Connie Leishman, John Lamers, and Doug McKechnie, I thank you for your time and efforts to make Clearview Township a better place to live, work, and play. To the candidates running for office, thank you for stepping up. I've been asked on numerous occasions what council work's like. Normally, I would start my reply with something like this. It's a considerable amount of reading. Get used to it, folks. In order to make informed decisions, to me, it's important to understand the background. And the background information contains a lot of subject matter. And to most people, it may seem pretty dry material, but to me, I find it interesting and necessary. I'm not going to make a lot of promises. I never do. In closing, I'm John Broderick, and I'm looking for your support to continue representing Clearview in Ward 3.
Thank you, John. Next is Ward 4. Ward 4 begins at Highway 26 and continues south, Concession 6 in the west, 3-4 Side Road in the east, 1213 in the south. Our 2 of our 3 candidates are available this evening, and we will start with Mr. David Whitskin.
Thank you. Sure. Nope.
Hang on, I'll try it. Yep, try it.
Hold it. Hello? Okay. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, the Chamber, for hosting this meeting of the minds. And big heartfelt thank you to the brave souls that signed my nomination papers. My name is Dave Whitska, although a majority of you might know me as Bud. I've lived in Nottawasaga Township, now Clearview, for just over 55 years. With the advances in social media, it's been much easier to make my points seen and heard to a wider audience. And yes, I thank you for some of the creative emojis as responses. The eggplants and capital letter U's are much appreciated. Why am I running? Fiscal accountability, seriously lacking by this present council. From projects 25% over budget where they plant trees under live hydro lines, to over 300% over budget for some grass and concrete at the new library. Spending $50,000 to move the contents of the old library less than 2 kilometers from the new to the new one. Did we have a rare Gutenberg Bible or Da Vinci etchings needing special care? Plus so many other cost overruns on current and future proposed projects. Why am I running? Transparency, seriously lacking on many fronts, from legal expenses due to defamation lawsuits, legal expenses for bankrupt rock festivals like Roxodus, to zero information to the public for the closure of the main hall for 9 days. We had to find out about that through the Creemore Echo. Thank you. Why am I running? Safety. The indifference by this present council is gobsmacking. Why does it take over 10 years to get this township to be compliant on an unsafe bridge in Centennial Park? Over 18 months to be AODA compliant on the Elm Street accessibility gate. Months to get precarious trees removed from the rail trail. Months of inaction on collapsing truss system at the Public Works yard. And this needs to stop. The taxpayer is not a bottomless ATM. That's why I am running. And now a few things I'd like to get accomplished. Say no to the out-of-control spending. Rein in excessive spending by downsizing certain departments where private sectors can pick up the slack, like the Parks Department. We can subcontract out the mowing jobs. There's plenty of local contractors that could add it to their established routes. And all non-emergency untendered bidding, all of it. Close the youth center and consolidate it into the new library. Why are we paying over $2,000 a month on a lease to a private party to run this? Do a serious look into the money-losing transit system. Rework routing where it does burn up unnecessary time and money and reroute it through Stainer only. The Simcoe Link system can take ridership to Wasaga. We were losing $15,000 a month prior to COVID. What are we losing now? And why are fares stuck at the inaugural price?
One more second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Robert Walker at the end. Robert?
Thank you. Good evening. Just again, thank you. Oh, there we go. Look out. Good evening. I would like to thank the Clearview Chamber of Commerce and the moderator for organizing this evening. To the residents who have taken your time to be here, I'm hoping that you will walk away from here with an idea of who you wish to put at the council table for the next 4 years. Also, to the candidates who have allowed your names to be here, thank you for standing up and being at this table and giving the residents an opportunity to make a choice. It is important. Who am I? My name is Robert Walker, otherwise known as Moose. I've lived in Stainer for over 65 years. My wife and I just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. In 1981 to 1994, I served as councillor for the town of Stainer. 2004 to the present time, I've served as a councillor for the Township of Clearview. Over those 31 years, I have sat on all Clearview committees and I've been as the organizer of some of them. I have been a Stainer Lions Club member for 20 years, a member of the Clearview Community Theatre for 20 years. I'm a volunteer firefighter for Stainer for 17 years. I coached Stainer minor hockey, and I also coached Stainer ladies fastball. I'm a dedicated, community-minded team player, striving to enhance the quality of life for all residents of Clearview Township. Things that I see that we need to look at and move forward. Suitable housing. There is a lack of suitable housing in Clearview Township, but unfortunately, this needs to be a partnership between the county, the township, the province, and developers. We need to get to a table and bring residents in to help us with this task to try and figure out how we can put that type of housing in Clearview Township. Economic development. The rebirth of this committee was greatly needed for promoting and supporting economic, agricultural, industrial, and commercial infrastructure. Again, partnerships are key to the component of residents, existing businesses, and farmers to work with this committee to see how we can promote Clearview Township, possibly bring in some outside industry that are compatible with what we have, and maybe even a large chain hotel. The other thing I want to talk about is Clearview Youth Center. Clearview Youth Center has been a great accomplishment for this community. It has helped the youth ages 12 to 18 We need to continue to promote and support this center by giving them the appropriate tools to provide a positive, safe, drug-free, bully-free, inclusive environment for all youth in Clearview.
Thank you, Moose. There will be one other name on the ballot for Ward 4, candidate Brandon Ward, who unfortunately was not able to attend tonight. Ward 5 candidates. Ward 5 is encompassing most of former Sunnydale Township, including New Lowell, Sunnydale Corners, and Brentwood. And we'll begin with candidate Marty Evans. Marty?
Good evening. Mr. Moderator, Your Worship, candidates, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marty Evans, and I'm running for council, Ward 5. I was born in Collingwood, raised in New Lowell, and have lived in Clearview most of my life. The only time I haven't lived in Clearview was when I was at school. I attended the University of Waterloo for 5 years, and I received my Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering. I also lived in Toronto for a year and received my Master's in Business Administration from York University. I retired from work 5 years ago, and when I did, I remember one of my brothers said to me, he said, "You know it's going to take about 6 months to do everything you've been putting off until retirement." Well, I've been retired for 5 years now, and I'm happy to say I have finally paid off my student loan. I do like to keep busy, and I find that I have time on my hands now, time that I am ready to devote to being on council. My platform is rather simple. I think we need to spend our money carefully. I know many senior citizens on fixed incomes, and I know first-time home buyers who are fighting inflation and just cannot afford an increase in taxes. I think we need to look at the projects that we do, the scope of the projects that we do, and I think we need to find efficiencies. I think with fiscal restraint and fiscal accountability, we can limit tax increases. I think we need to limit the number of consultants that we hire and trust in ministries like the MTO to do a good job. I think we also need to improve the safety on our roads. And I'm really happy that the county is already looking at one of the worst intersections in the township, the one near where I live, at County Road 9 and Centerline Road. I'm also very happy that the county is looking at developing a multi-use trail from Angus to Stainer, and I would like to see that completed. Finally, I think we need to encourage more volunteers in the community. Volunteers for things like the Small Halls festivals, Winterama, minor sports. These are things that develop a community spirit, a sense of community, and they also make Clearview a great place to live. I notice we have a bit of time left. That's all I have to say, but I know people can get blood clots from sitting too long. So if you want, why don't we all just stand up and stretch? Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Our next candidate for Ward 5 is Melanie Walters.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melanie Walters, and I'm running for Ward 5. I want to start off by saying a quote by Paul Ryan. Every individual knows that his or her achievement depends on a community of persons working together. This past spring, I put my name forward as a councilwoman with the Township of Clearview, Ward 5. The above quote is something I believe because I would not have done as many things that I have done without the support of the community. A few months ago, and 3 strands of gray hair later, presumably from all my hard work, I am here in front of all of you asking for your vote. Before I dive into why I think I'm the right candidate for this position, I want to tell you a a little something about me. I moved here in 2013, and right away I fell in love with New Lowell. I work a full-time job as an office clerk in the city of Barrie. During my time in New Lowell, I have helped raise 2 stepchildren, and they have participated in many of the community events. I've been part of the Evening and Brentwood Boards, Winterama, and anything else that the community has done, I tried to be a part of it. Now to tell you why I would like to be a great candidate for this position. One reason would be that I understand how council works. I've been attending most council meetings every 2 weeks as a spectator since 2018 to stay up on current events. I think that the best way that I've contributed to this community is taking part in the events. I have done small halls for 5 years, concerts in evening, walking in parades, and getting to know a lot of incredible people while going door to door. Best of all, I enjoy giving back to our community. When I'm elected, my main goal would be to look into the speeding down our streets. See if a crosswalk could be put in on County Road 9. I know that we as a council can't put one on that road because it's not our road, but to be brought to the county council. Another one would be to improve the visual aspect of the main intersection of County Road 9 and Hogback. Other things on my agenda that I would like to see started or completed would be a dog park in the New Lowell Park, a roof put over the cement pad, and to ensure that the fire hall is built and completed for our firefighters. And also to ensure that the halls are completed, or at least started. But I know the government moves at glacier speeds. Win or lose in this election, you as a community have granted me a rare opportunity in my life that I'm incredibly grateful for. At the end of the day, my plans will be far from the most ambiguous. I'm sure you have heard plans from other candidates that will sound better in almost every way, but ultimately, it is what people bring into fruition that counts. I hope that my record of doing more demonstrates to you that I am an effective councilwoman and the most realistic candidate on this stage. I believe, thanks.
Dead center. So thank you to our, hold on a second, Chuck. Thank you to our ward candidates. There are a number of questions that have been submitted, so there will be a further opportunity to hear their views and platforms in just a few moments. We're now moving on to our deputy mayor candidates, who will also be Clearview's representative at the County of Simcoe. The deputy mayor candidates will receive 5 minutes each for their presentations. The same procedure applies with respect to time notifications. As by random draw, our first speaker will be Chuck Aaron. Chuck?
First, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce and all of you guys for coming out this evening. Unlike most of the people sitting up here, I was born in Ottawa. Went to school, I was a decent student. I joined the Canadian Armed Forces right after high school, as I was in a rush to start my life, and university wasn't as attractive to me as it was seeing the world. I spent most of my career in the forces in the logistics corps. Started out as a trucker, moved my way up in rank, solving problems and planning logistics for operations to be successful. Without beans and bullets, the Army cannot win. I was posted to CFB board in 2013, bought a house in New Lowell. My youngest child graduated from Stainer Collegiate a few years ago. My wife fell in love with the area, and we put down roots for the first time. I joined the local Legion upon my retirement, became president in a few short years. After 5 years as the president, I moved up to the zone commander for the 12 area branches in Simcoe County. Campaigning has been on my bucket list for a few years, and this has been a lot of fun so far. Knocking on doors, meeting people, and hearing the issues that you have brought to me. And I will be glad to work on. As a new resident, after traveling the world, I will bring a different point of view to our much needed discussions at council if elected. I'm campaigning for deputy mayor as I wish to sit on county council as well as township council. This is where I believe I can bring the largest impact for our township. With council shrinking in seats, I believe that the strong representation in each chair will be a key to success in the new term. We have an aging infrastructure within the township, and as far as I can tell, we do not life cycle projects. If you invest $1 million project, that project will have pieces that break down and wear out. If there is no funds to repair or rebuild, it is always requiring new funding. When they all break down in the same year, it makes for an unsustainable budget. For each project of growth, if there's a fund set aside to replace in the future, this alleviates budget constraints or overruns in any given year. We need affordable housing for seniors in this township and affordable solutions rather than going from their house to a facility in the city. I will actively look for developers who wish to build this type of housing in our township. But if we don't have a solid infrastructure in place, it will make finding developers much more difficult to attract. I know it's been tried before, but I'd like to get township water to Ottawa and Bateau. Because if we don't, development in the area will become stagnant if the water sources get depleted or the aquifers stop supporting any new wells. Wastewater issues in Creemore. The expansion of the sewer system many years ago was designed to carry 800 additional homes, and less than that have been built. I can't count to 800, but a lot less than 800 have been built. But so far the system is maxed out. A review of why this is needs to be done soonest and changes made in order to carry any additional homes in the Creemore area that are planned. OPP presence in the township has a direct impact on speeding and crime. We need more of them to cover our township than we currently have. We must lower the instances of speeding, crimes, and bad driving situations. I have witnessed many as a truck driver on the roads in this township in the last 7 years. On that note, traffic patterns in Singhampton on the 124. I did listen to a presentation and talk to a few people. The speed limit of 50 kilometers at the bottom of the hill needs to be moved to the top of the hill. It is a county road, our county, their county, our township, their township. It's going to take some doing, but we need to move that sign up the hill. I intend to fully support our youth center. It provides a safe place for the next generation to grow within our township and to support their learning outside of formal education locations. It has grown in capacity since its inception, and I will push for its continued support by council for years to come. I will strive to unite Township under the Clearview banner. In my time living here and campaigning, I've heard people refer to their local settlement area repeatedly. I've never heard anyone say they are from Clearview. I will be happy to say if elected, I am the deputy mayor of Clearview.
Next is Paul Van Stavern.
Good evening. As was said, my name is Paul Van Stavern, and I am running for your position of Deputy Mayor in Clearview Township. A bit about myself first. I'm a graduate of the University of Guelph in agricultural mechanization and agricultural business. I spent the first part of my working life with a bank in the agricultural and commercial lending sector. It gave me a great appreciation of the needs of rural and farm communities. I moved to Stayner in 1989 to start a business called Stayner Rental. My wife, Adina, became part of the operation in 1993. Together, we raised our 3 children here and built our business in Clearview. In addition, community involvement has always been a high priority for our family. I have been president of Stayner Minor Hockey, president of Stayner and District Kinsman Club, treasurer of the former Clearview and Township Ratepayers Association, and I have served as a committee member of the South Georgian Bay Center for Business Development for over 25 years. We chose this community to be our home. Although I have not sat on council, I have championed many community causes over the years. This includes the designation of Airport Road to a full load designation, challenging road speed reductions, and a past member of the Clearview Economic Development Committee. I've been encouraged by many community members to run for council. After building and successfully one of the largest independent rental businesses in Ontario for the past 32 years, I have sold that business and I am retiring fully on December 15th of this year. My wife has already retired and supports me in my political aspiration. I understand the commitment. As some of you have read, I believe in three main issues facing our community: affordable housing, creating sustainable employment, and protecting agriculture. For the most part, housing has fallen under the responsibility of County of Simcoe. The time has come to step up with policies developed within Clearview, specific to the needs of our community. We need housing for young people, families, and seniors, in particular seniors who are becoming a forgotten entity in many communities. The needs of seniors are different than that of our young people. If you don't think we have homeless people or people living in cars in Clearview, guess again. People need help. Sustainable jobs. What does family or an individual need to live on? Everybody will answer that question differently depending on lifestyle, spending habits, or expected standard of living. Our community does not have infrastructure to extract smokestacks. What should Clearview attract? We need dry industries, professional offices, skilled trades, services for residential, commercial, and industrial and agricultural industries. We look at the employment created by the new businesses at Cashdown Corner intersection. Look at the number of people who are employed there today. Think outside the box. In addition to having the opportunity to get a job, Clearview needs to support those who want to create a job or to start their own business. We need to support both initiatives. Agriculture. Over 175 acres of farmland are put under urban development in this province every day. In the next 15 years, Ontario is expected to increase its population between 20 to 25%. This means we need a place for people to live and food to feed them. We have a vibrant community in Clearview. How can we encourage the more locally grown produce, animal husbandry, 100-mile, and the local concept within Clearview? We need to be leaders in recognizing, supporting sustainable agriculture. I could go on and on about different concerns I have in our community, specific issues as far as the Nottawasaga Conservation Authority, the road issues by the quarry west of Duntroon, the airport, and many more. Can we make change for the positive? Absolutely. I have met many people I've enjoyed conversation with during my political travels. I learn more and more each day about Clearview. The concept of administration, my concept of administration is that we manage our community for the good of the community. At the same time, my business experience tells me to be mindful of the expenses being incurred so that not to burden the municipal taxpayers. We do not need individuals pursuing personal initiatives when they do not represent the majority. We live in a great community, and I ask for your support to advance the interests of Clearview and its residents to make Clearview an even better place to work, live, and grow. I thank everyone who has helped in my campaign. I wish my fellow candidates good luck in the election, and I thank each of you for your time this evening for coming out, and ask that you vote for myself, Paul Van Staveren, for Deputy Mayor of Clearview Township. Thank you.
And finally, Deborah Brawny.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to come out tonight and hear what the candidates have to say. I'd like to thank the Clearview Chamber for organizing this event. For those who do not know me, I'm Deborah Brawny, and I would like to be your new Deputy Mayor. There are a few reasons why I feel I'm a good candidate. I have roots. I've talked to people over the last while, and they say they know of me, but they don't know who I am. Well, I'm a descendant of a farmer from the 9th Concession of Sunnydale who married a school teacher who was almost involved in as many community events as her granddaughter. Her involvement included the library board, the Women's Institute, horticulture, 4-H leadership, among other groups. My father, Ted, was the first CAO of Clearview. His out-of-the-box thinking helped to finance the building of the new Lowell Legion on County Road 9, as well as other work projects in the municipality. My mother, a second-generation school teacher, has always been her children's biggest fan. Both were involved in local community groups, including Girl Guides, the local church, the Legion, and the Lions. Through their example, they molded how I view my responsibility to my community. Everyone has something to offer to make our community a better place. My husband, Trevor, was a businessman in Sunnydale and Clearview for over 30 years. We have made Clearview our home, and my children and grandchildren continue to live here. The second reason I feel that I'm a good candidate is I'm genuine. I state my intentions, but that does not mean you can't change my mind. I love to talk with people. It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, the bidman, or a local reporter. I like to collaborate. What I see as a solution may not be the solution, and I welcome critical thinking to come up with a better plan. I listen to seniors because they have the wisdom of their years to offer guidance. I listen to young people, and I'm willing to learn from them. With all the information and technology that is available to us today, I respect young adults, what young adults have a lot to offer when we are problem solving. We are shaping the municipality and the county for the next generation, so let's be open to all the ideas. The last reason is I have experience. I have 30 years experience in municipal government in areas ranging from public works to social services. I develop policies and procedures within the social services department. I develop programs to do work efficiently, and I embrace technology available to work effectively. I was part of the emergency social services response team. It made me understand that although we plan for disaster, we need to trust your people on the ground to make good decisions based on their training and experience. During the early days of the COVID pandemic, I volunteered for redeployment to a long-term care facility. It gave me firsthand experience of the issues faced in this area of the public service. On a lighter note, I'm an avid volunteer in the community. I have been involved in baseball, the church, and organized snowmobiling as a driver trainer. In the last 4 years, while not on council, I volunteered as chair for the Accessibility Advisory Committee. I was a mentor for the Cybergnomes robotics team, and a member of the Sundale Winterama Committee. Many of these continued during the pandemic, although in an altered state. I hope to see them reemerge as engaging in-person committees, programs, and events. Because of my 8 years as a ward councillor, I will step into the deputy mayor's position without having to learn the ropes. Municipalities are creatures of the province, and we're bound by legislation as to how we make decisions, and in some ways, how we engage with the public. When elected, what I want to do? Set Clearview's priorities for the next 4 years based on our current strategic plan, making sure we work at creating an environment that will support multi-generational community, preserve and improve our infrastructure, whether it is buildings, roads, sidewalks, or the natural environment, creating a community that will support business development. I want to advocate ways through planning in the county to encourage the building of more attainable, accessible housing for everyone. I want to improve communication between council, staff, and the community. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to serving you as Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you to all the candidates for speaking to us and addressing us this evening. We're now going to move into the question period. I will be asking questions that have been previously submitted to the chamber. There are questions for specific wards. There is one question for a specific candidate, and there are also some general questions. Each of you will be given the opportunity to address the question for either your ward or the general question, should you wish. You do not have to answer questions if you do not choose to. You'll be given 1 minute to address the question. I'm going to get the question addressed to a specific individual out of the way. This is a question for candidate David Whitskin. Pass the microphone down to David. Candidate Whitskin, you have been very vocal utilizing social media. You famously react to anyone who opposes your views, advising them to block you on your social media. Should you be elected ward councillor, blocking you is no longer an option. How will you address concerns brought forward by constituents that may oppose your views? You have 1 minute.
People can still block me if they want to. If they do not like my views, as I've said plenty of times, you can skip by my opinions and carry on with whatever thread there is on social media. I tend to block people when they start to get abusive. Like I said at the start of my speech, I get a lot of emoji type direct messaging. I also get a lot of people giving me the double middle finger driving down the highway. So you're going to have to take me the way I am. I'm not going to really change much.
These next 2 questions are specifically for Ward 2 candidates, Robert Mccarthur and Tom Patterson. You will each have an opportunity to answer these questions. Since the microphone is here, we'll start with Robert. ATV restrictions in the Creemore and Dunedin area have been brought forward for reconsideration. Are you for or against ATV restrictions on the roads traveling through your ward? Robert, 1 minute.
Okay, from my short experience going around door to door, and ATVs are licensed and insured vehicles. They are perfectly legal to drive down any road. So we can't be babysitters if people want to go off the roads onto private property. So I think if we have a Clearview policy for all of Clearview, then it will maybe take away some of the local problems in different parts of the ward.
Tom, the same question. Do you need it repeated, or are you okay? Do you need the question repeated, or are you good?
No, I'm good. No, I understand the question, and it's a good one. When we, in 2020, when we created the bylaw that exists today, one of the issues was the areas that are unique to Ward 2, and that is the areas that are in the Niagara Escarpment. And some of the topology is a little different than, and then a good half of the township as well, with the hills and the valleys. But we took great care to look at the areas where, either on county roads, which are a given, the county's not allowing ATV traffic, or where there are prohibitions by the NEC in terms of protected lands, natural protected lands, the protection buffer, and there is a third class that would allow in the rural areas on the NEC the use of recreation of vehicles, but through a development permit, because it's a change of use. And that applies largely to road allowances, what some people call unopen roads. We don't really consider them unopen, but they're not maintained. I have 1 minute left?
No, you've used a minute.
Okay.
You're good? Okay. All right, you can keep the microphone, Tom. There's a second question for Ward 2 candidates. Second question is, reducing speed limits on township roads has been a hot topic this past spring. It was ultimately turned down. Do you believe this issue should be brought forward again?
The issue is that I didn't think, for several years we've been getting requests to change speed signs and put in three-way signs, and council are not experts and that sort of thing, and it's a statutory responsibility. You can be fined through the Province Highway Traffic Act. So we asked for a comprehensive engineering study to be done on 48 sections of the road. It was done by R.J. Burnsides. It was looked at by our staff. They came back with recommendations for the first 3 that they thought were necessary to act quickly. One was Riverside Drive, concession 6. The other was Fairgrounds Road, and of course concession 10, which you saw was rebuilt, and at a cost of $4.4 million, and still we couldn't bring it up to MTO standards to get to 60. The issue is the fact that we found some design constraints, which mean the risks are higher, and so if we're not going to do speed, then we're going to have to do something else, maybe put in barriers or widen the shoulders to take the risk away, and that's something that our staff is still contemplating, and I would encourage them to do because there are risks on the road.
Down to Robert for the same question, please.
Yeah, so the studies have showed for the most part that the current speed limits are safe on all our roads. I know there are a few quirks here and there, obviously, but we got to work on that. Enforcement is probably key to, because I know even if the speed limit's 80, nobody drives 80. So I think in the future the township's either going to have to look at more policing money or more bylaw enforcement money and just enforce speed limits to help keep our roads safer in the future.
Thank you. Can you move the microphone to the middle to the deputy mayor candidates, please? So there are 3 questions directed specifically to the deputy mayor candidates. The first question, and Deb, I guess you can go first. Small vocal groups have greatly influenced the current council. These groups have not represented the majority view of Clearview, however, have greatly impacted the outcomes of council. How do you ensure that as deputy mayor you will represent all residents, not just the loudest? Again, these are questions that are submitted, not necessarily my view.
Adhering to the procedures bylaw that's been established by the township helps us to keep meetings moving effectively. I think in some respects we need to adhere to that in order to move forward the bigger policies that we need to set for staff. I think it's important that if an issue is important enough to come to council, that staff be given an opportunity to comment on it because they're the subject matter experts. And I don't believe that councillors should be winging it. So information should not come to council and ask for us to respond to it without us having an opportunity to review it. And I think by setting up people coming as delegations so that people have to have an opportunity to do some research before they respond.
Thank you, Deb. Chuck.
Same question.
Same question. How do you ensure that as deputy mayor you will represent all residents, not just the loudest?
I'm a huge proponent of public consultation, both in the meetings at Council Hall, as well as I'm a very approachable dude. I would be out there asking questions, and people can approach me just about anywhere. Being a retired guy, I can be found at any donut shop, gas station, getting my motorcycle filled up, or yeah, I don't drink, so I'm not in the bars. Any place that serves wings, you can find me there too. I like food.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. As I identified in my own speech about that, I've had some certain situations over the last few years dealing with council in that regards. The first thing that's important to me is to filter the answers or to filter the questions. For those of you who don't know, when we run as deputy mayors, we get inundated by media groups, social groups, whatever you want to call it. And social media has been a big part of that problem or concerns. A lot of them I've gotten through this campaign I simply ignore because they want to get us on the bandwagon to support their causes, and they don't represent those of our community. And how do we start? The filter starts with our staff when our proposals are going to be put to council. And we need to define who's going to speak to them. We've had a lot of situations in our communities where people from outside the community are expressing their interests and their opinions on our community. Who should belong? The people who pay taxes, the people who live here, people who work, play, whatever. But social media is a big proponent or a big problem within dealing with this issue.
Hi, I'm Micah Denbach. Join us on Rogers TV and on Facebook and on YouTube at Clearview Community Church for all of our content. Thank you, and I hope you guys have a great day.
My Uncle Cheney was one of over 150,000 Indigenous children that were taken to residential schools between the 1800s and 1996. My uncle ran away from school wanting to get home to his mom and dad, and sadly he didn't make it and died of exposure. When Gord Downey found out about my late Uncle Cheney's story, he wrote Secret Path, a series of poems that became an album, then a graphic novel, a documentary, and a concert. Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asked us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
Focus better.
Partner better.
Sleep better.
Breathe better.
Love better. Work better. Friend better. Unwind better.
Everything gets better when you get active.
All right, the next question submitted for the deputy mayor candidate specifically. Interesting question. If you received a $1 million grant for use in Clearview in any way you wanted, what would you do with it? Paul?
Just remember these questions. We haven't seen or heard them. My first reaction would be, as a banker, let's pay off some debt. The second question, I always am a firm believer in infrastructure. I believe in building buildings. I believe in upgrading buildings, not as strong as far as operating expenses. I would identify where we need it in this community. I'm a proponent for accessibility in terms of what we see with the small halls and stuff like that. It's a great place to put money for the future.
Thank you. Chuck?
All right. $1 million grant in a township with a $101 million average annual budget, probably not going to go all that far. I am a huge proponent in life cycling every project that Township does. For every mile of road you require, in 10 years you're going to have to repave it. I would probably put it for future use and save it.
Thank you. Deb?
So I'd take one of the areas where we've been setting aside money every year through our budgeting process, and I'd marry it with that, and I'd probably try to fix a bridge.
Thank you for your answers. Really should have had another 0 or 2 on it, but I'm a big spender, that's why I'm not on council anymore. The final question for our deputy mayor candidates, and Chuck can, in fairness, Chuck can be the first to answer this one. Please explain how you would evaluate whether or not a project was worth implementing, considering all elements such as costs, upgrades, long-term maintenance, funding, etc. I think this is right up your alley, Chuck.
So the question is, how would I assess such a project?
Yeah, how do you evaluate whether or not a project was worth implementing?
Well, first and foremost would be the benefit to the township. If it had no benefit, short-term or long-term, then I probably wouldn't support it. Whether we could continue to maintain it, afford it, down the road indefinitely, what its life was, did this $1 million project have a end life in its usefulness, and how far out is it, would all be questions that I would ask to look at that project before supporting it.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you. Whenever we look at expenditures or whatever, my opinion has always been whether we're looking at expansion, maintenance, or a repair, upkeep. And when we get into that, a lot of the stuff we look at today is the lifetime expectancy of our infrastructure, of our expansions, whether it be a vehicle, a bridge, whatever. If we are expanding, one of the big things today is operating costs. You heard a couple of people tonight talk about library costs and moving stuff, whatever. That's a big proponent for the future that we are putting on the next generation as far as the debt or whatever. The first thing when we start talking about infrastructure is safety. And for those of you who still work in the industries or business, safety has become one of the main criteria in a lot of businesses, and it's very important. So with that in mind, I established my priorities as far as safety, as far as operating costs, and as far as what we need for our future.
Thank you. Deb?
Can you repeat the question just one more time?
So explain how you would evaluate whether or not a project was worth implementing, considering all elements such as costs, upgrades, long-term maintenance, funding, etc. Pretty general.
Yeah, and part of it is looking at the initial cost and how many people it's going to benefit, whether it's something that we're required to do by legislation, whether it's whether there's something we can do that would reduce the cost, and what our long-term financial commitment is going to be to that project. You know, sometimes it involves another employee and that sort of thing, and we don't necessarily need those kinds of projects, and sometimes we can forego those.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to some questions that were submitted for all candidates to answer should they choose. Kelly, perhaps the microphone can make its way back down to Melanie. And we will just run the table. Question 1, 2, 3, 4 as time permits. Again, don't have to answer. Some of these questions I think many of you addressed in your presentations. So I think there's an opportunity just to reiterate your messaging. So the first question, how do we know that our position as a constituent or issue will get to council if you may not agree with our position? 1 minute. Are you ready to answer? So, I'll put it in general terms. Somebody comes and knocks on your door, who lives in New Lowell, and they want an issue brought forward to the council that you think is not worth bringing to council or that you do not agree with. They want a stoplight and you don't want a stoplight. They want to increase the speed limit, you don't want to increase the speed limit person. How can you assure your constituent that you are representing their interests on this council?
That's a great question.
Did you submit it?
That's a great, no, I didn't.
I think the answer is pretty simple, but anyway, go ahead.
I would still bring it forward to the council.
Okay, Robert?
I think the first thing is I'd sit down with them and talk to them find out why the issue is important, and then guarantee them that I will bring it forward to council and to staff to be looked at if it's involved some maintenance or whatever. And that's, you got to communicate with the individual and guarantee that you're the representative, whether you're Ward 4 or whether you're for all Clearview. Your job is Clearview. So you would take that and bring it forward with some more information so that you can support it on their behalf.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I think I would have to echo Robert's comments there. I would want to sit down and discuss it with the individual and try to suss out why they feel that particular way, and then, yeah, bring it forward.
Tom?
Yeah, well, I've actually had quite a bit of experience with this, and it's why that I feel that it's important that councillors are out there and don't intimidate people to tell them exactly what they want. Oftentimes I have an opinion. Many of us have opinions. Councillors have opinions. We can do our own research, or sometimes, many times you've heard that we should we direct our staff to bring back a report because they can provide expert opinions, expert recommendations. So I have my duty. It's a duty for me to bring that to council. Council makes the decisions for the township, and we have our discussions in council, prepared to make the right decision regardless of what our final opinion is.
Thank you, Tom. Phyllis?
Well, I have to, sounds like a cliche, but I have to agree with my fellow councillors now. If elected, I'm only one of 7 votes. So there's other people with other opinions. So I'd have to listen to the person and figure out where they were coming from and listen to their point of view as well. And then it would be brought to council. Thanks.
Thank you. Paul?
Just a quick answer. The first responsibility is that of a councillor to deal with the local issues of the constituents. So my first thing would be to defer and make sure they've talked to their councillor and make sure, and then we can act accordingly with their opinion.
I'd get all the details from said individual that brought it forward, bring it to council, and when it does land on the agenda, make sure I got back to that individual to let them know what night the vote was taking place.
I think sometimes it needs to be more collaborative than that. We're not the subject matter experts on a lot of these issues, and so I think sometimes it involves a discussion with staff as well. And maybe what we're thinking isn't exactly, there's a way to get to the end while we have some input from other parties. And I think it's important that we talk to people about their issue and then we move forward. I've had issues where I haven't agreed with what staff has, or what somebody has come forward with, but it doesn't mean that it didn't go through at council after discussion with our staff and talking to other councillors. Hence we have crossing guards in New Lowell.
I think information is key. I'm open-minded. I've changed my mind before. Yes, I would bring it to council, try and get other people's opinion, and evaluate it. Thank you.
I would probably sit down and talk with them, have them actually sit down and write it on paper as well, something that can go to staff as well as to council, and probably sit them down and maybe introduce them to some other councillors as well.
I'd like to meet them face to face and see what the actual problem is. And if the circumstances required it, I'd take some photos and submit them with my report to council.
Yes, for sure I will bring it to the council there, depending on how big the issue is. At the same time, I will talk with the gentleman and then try to resolve it with the office and hopefully it will be resolved there.
Yeah, I'd have to say anybody that brings a concern up is greatly appreciated because they're showing concern in their community and trying to enrich their community for what they believe in. So there is no question that sit down, talk it through, bring it, and get the general consensus from the whole council.
Back to we need to be here. We need to hear from you so we can be here for you. Everyone's opinion matters. Everyone should be listened to. It's very important because we're here for the community and to look after everyone. And it may be something one person thinks is trivial that bothers someone else, and every opinion matters.
Question number 2. And again, I think a number of you have already spoken to this. There is a severe shortage of affordable housing in Clearview, both rental as well as owned. This is forcing many to leave our community, particularly seniors who may have lived here for decades. Question 1 is, do you believe the township has a role to play in solving the housing problem? And if your answer is yes, what ideas would you bring to the table to solve this issue? We'll start with Laura.
Perfect. My answer is yes, we do. We have so many seniors. It explains why Huron Meadows is so popular. There are a lot of different companies out there that do community living, where they will come, they will put your sidewalks in, they will put your community center in, it will have a pool, a library, your grass will be cut, your snow will be removed, and you can have the quality of life that seniors need. They also do this type of community in an underage, so the seniors communities would be 55 and over, but they also do mixed communities as well for families. And to me, it's a great solution because it's providing services for the community as well as looking after our seniors.
Yeah, this is a definite yes, and close to my heart because my parents, we had to move them out of the community of Creemore here to find a facility that could help them out in their later years. So there's no question that it's got to start at our level. We got to come up with a solution to make, as you said, a Huron Meadows type thing available for each area of our community.
Yes, it is an important issue there, and we have a lot of elderly and old people in this town here, and we would like to, for example, in Beng is a perfect place for it, in Stainer there, so we can build that towards the senior citizen home, or at the same time, we can utilize that space there. It's close to the township, downtown area, everything's close by. It'll be a great opportunity there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say try and cut the red tape and open more larger homeowners up to having the ability to have granny flats in their houses. DC charges, get those reduced as well, might be a good incentive.
Thank you.
Honestly, the answer is yes. However, the ideas component, just know that it's not just going to be us as council leading this. This is going to be everybody leading it. We're going to need help with the public and private sectors in order to accommodate housing affordability.
My answer is yes, and I think we have to make sure the infrastructure can enable building some units.
Of course, my answer is yes, but I think part of it is advocating at the county level in order to work with the province to have development opened up so that we can start, I hate the word dictating, but we have developers in our community, but they're not building the kind of housing that we're looking for seniors. And that's the stuff that we have to address.
My answer is yes. Currently, we have several site development plans that have been in the works for 20 and 15 and 12 years. We have to entice the developers to actually build. And that does create some serious challenges without paying for the development to happen. we need to attract them to Clearview Township.
Within my speech there, I talked about affordable housing, and everybody is well aware that the needs for seniors versus young people is totally different. Seniors need wheelchair accessibility in a lot of cases. They need access to public transportation. They need access to social services. Remember always in this community that we are, when it comes to development charges, it's a three-way system. It's between education, the County of Simcoe, and Township of Clearview. So in answer to this, we have to develop a process within our own community, which includes part of Simcoe County. What can we do? We're looking, you start to see around this community, small homes. Oshawa has used an example. They built some seniors buildings now using shipping containers, and they're absolutely gorgeous. We have minimum requirements as far as square footage for these homes. Maybe we have to be looking at changing. We've got some builders in the room, and I'm sure if you sat down with them and you were to say to them, give us ideas, what do you think, what can we do? There's ways of doing it. Included and mandatory in a lot of our new subdivision, make affordable housing and make it the size and accessibility for the people who need it of this community.
I could talk all day about this. No, we won't. Connie and I sat on an attainable housing committee for over a year. Currently, the province and the federal government are looking at mainly the main transportation corridors, Toronto areas, where the services are, where people can get around. That's where they're starting to focus on more than us. We need collaboration. We can't do it on our own. There's just no way. The dollar signs that would take it, there are communities, there's in BC, they do housing even for their ski resorts for their employees. They do housing, affordable housing for their employees. We do need to look at something like this. But the County of Simcoe started, and everybody probably in this room knows that there's a grant out there, a forgivable loan for building secondary suites and keeping them at an affordable rate of rent for 15 years. You can do that yourselves in your homes. You can make secondary suites. There is also a grant out now that you can use the funds for the seniors to make it accessible or retrofit their homes, and that's with the County of Simcoe. Yes, I could talk about this all day long, but we need to do something for our residents. Thank you.
This is an issue that I've noticed. I will start off by saying we don't plan our community. We facilitate the planning of our community. Zoning and official plans are not enough. It's kind of like a list of ingredients, but it's not the recipe. We also know what our needs are. We're seniors. We're parents. We have children that are going to want to buy homes, and we have seniors that want to leave their home and live in the community. So there's a level of community planning, a community housing plan that I don't know if any municipalities do, but we should identify the housing needs that we have, put them in a plan prior to, in anticipation of developers interested in building homes, and use the leverage we have prior to approving their developments to ask them to build some of that housing that we need. They'll be willing to do that if they're approached that way. Developers are resourceful. If they see a market, and that's the way to get into our market, by building senior homes, affordable homes, some social housing that we have resources for example, from the region, then we can see it. We can take a proactive step in meeting those housing needs.
Does the township have a role? Absolutely, yes. A lot of it boils down to funding, making things attractive. We've actually started to put some funds away Personally, I think that needs to be increased. We need to look at partnerships with the county and private, looking outside the box. I've seen or heard some ideas that we've talked about before, small houses, suites, that type of thing. But it's a huge issue. We have, and it's every day. Folks that have spent their life here and want to spend their retirement years here, that really hits home. It's something we need to spend a lot more time on and ultimately a lot more thought and unfortunately more funding.
Yes, thank you. Certainly we do. And as I mentioned in my preamble, it's a partnership. But the key to that partnership is to find a developer who's willing to take less profit but support the needs of Clearview in that market. That's the challenge. But partnership, though, could involve Clearview County and the province. Unfortunately, the province keeps saying there's a need. But the province, as usual, has no money to help you with that need. That's a common thing we hear time after time for whatever it is. We can change our zoning plan, our zoning bylaw and official plan to help. We could look at apartment complexes. We could look at 800 to 1,000 square foot units, but we got to find a developer that's willing to sit down at the table and make it happen.
Yes, I would bring it forward, get people involved, get all levels of government involved, get all community services and find money so we could help contribute as well.
Thank you for answering that question. A financial question. If elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our township on a firmer financial footing? And when you're ready, Melanie. Robert, are you ready to go?
What 3 steps? Very difficult question. We have reserve funds that we use for various things. The idea is to continue to put money into those reserve funds. The contracts to check, and we work through all that process. The costs of everything have ballooned since 2020 to put us on a solid ground. Financially, I think this township's in fairly decent shape. And our debt load's not that bad, but to keep that aspect, I'm not the financial wizard on council, so that's a kind of a hard question for us to answer. But we keep looking at the budget, helping keep the budget to a acceptable level, and go from there.
Melanie, are you ready? Not yet? John?
Well, first and foremost, I think managed growth. We're in a really good position for that. Actually, we're in an ideal position for that. In terms of finances, Robert's right. We're actually, comparative to all of our neighbors and a lot of municipalities in the province, we're actually in pretty good shape. Can we get better? Yeah. Use of current and future funding, good use of it. Yeah. And working with the feds and the province, that's a tough one. But things are changing slightly.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you. I think that we need to do what a lot of businesses do and take a look at our resources. What happens now at council is we basically every year on a one-year basis only look at the needs that the township needs to spend, which come from our staff, and then we try to insert as councillors a bit of discretionary spending, which are very small, like very small. What has to be done is we should be getting a 5-year outlook of our resources, match it to the 10-year program at least that our staff has in terms of what roads need to be built, etc. And then we sit down and we discuss at council level with assistance from staff, because we don't know all the details, what our strategic budget is. Like this new council that's going to be here for 4 years, we need to sit down and say, okay, we're elected now. What are our priorities? We said a lot of things that we need. What are our priorities? How are we going to agree as a council what needs to be done first, and then put out a five-year program, a budget that says 3 years fixed budget that can always shift as we go into each current year, and a 2 more year outlook, so that we keep ahead of this. And that includes a suggestion that Chuck Aaron mentioned that I believe we need to do is life cycle costing. We don't know how much we have to spend in 20 or 30 years. I've been on council for 16 years. Some of the stuff I agreed to in 2006, now we need to spend money on. And now it's a brand new item. We didn't put enough money away, possibly.
Well, we've just come through unprecedented times, and honestly, the budgets that we've been putting together with council have been bare bones that we've been able to do. And I agree with Tom, we do have to look forward and plan ahead. We know what's going to be done for the most part in the future, and we just need to stay on course and work with each other and make sure that we keep things to a minimum.
I guess I'm being a new candidate, we're at a bit of a disadvantage to understand all the workings of the financials, and that's a critical thing for us going in, to learn about the financials. It's a business with social aspects running. One of my big things is budgeting, and as a businessman, we always had to do budgeting. What's our long term, what's our short term, and we spend accordingly. Concerns I have over the years is we seem to move money from one project to another, or reallocation of funds. Is that acceptable? I don't know. We're new to the cause. I mean, I love the idea when people said about reserve funds. We need to do that for the future. There's a lot of committee or other communities in this area that have no reserve funds, and that's the worst thing that happens, is not saving for that rainy day. You know, the comment about life cycling, yes, we got bridges, you know, that need to be worked on. We have roads that need to be worked on. We do not have a budget right now for road improvements that I'm aware of. And we got into this discussion, we need a plan to talk about road upgrading. You heard the discussion about, you know, speeds and stuff like that. A lot of that is determined by the quality of roads. So there's a lot of planning that goes into this, and I think it's, when we start reviewing as a new council, we will do the review of our financial situation today and what's going to happen in the future.
First and foremost, I do not believe you can run a $100 million budget on a one-year look ahead. You need to push that out 10, 15 years. You may not be the council deciding on that when it comes up, but if you are amortizing a building, a waste facility, a water treatment plant that is going to come to the end of its useful life long, long after you are on council, and you don't set aside funding to replace that, to maintain that, to keep that in tip-top running condition today, And you have no idea what your annual budget would be if you're not looking out at least 10 years on your fixed assets that the township owns. You can't maintain a building on a 1 year by 1 year by 1 year look at. The light bulb above my head may last the year. The ceiling tiles will last a lot longer. But if no one is actually looking at when those ceiling tiles have to be replaced and let consecutive terms, councils know that what they're looking at, I don't think you can steer a ship looking just right ahead of it.
The province dictated a number of years ago that we needed an asset management plan, and it gives us the expected life cycle of most of our buildings, most of our infrastructure. Now, sometimes unforeseen things happen. In the New Lowell area, we sometimes deal with water, and it can reduce the life cycle of a bridge or a culvert, and it needs to be repaired. I think our staff has done a pretty good job in keeping us abreast of things that need to be done. I think what gets us caught up every once in a while tends to be the sticker price of some of the things that we have to repair. You know, the Collingwood Street Bridge was one thing that was done by the county, but we also have a huge culvert there that's our responsibility, and the cost of us to repair it is a little bit eye-opening for us. And there has been money set aside in reserves, and I think that we need to be responsible for the money that we're spending there. And using our asset management plan, we plan for the future. Council has a very small part of the budget that they actually have the ability to change.
Well, I'm glad this is only 3 steps and not 10, or we'll be here all night. If you can't raise the money, you got to control your spending. So like I said, prioritize what we do, look at the scope of what we do, and look for efficiencies.
Well, I'm going to have to agree with most of what everybody said up here, except I'm going to add a couple more points. Paying down debt. If we can pay down, if we have a surplus, we should be paying down the debt, along with saving in the reserves, finding efficiencies, you know, more public input when we come to budget. Clearview is in a good financial position. However, because we're in a good financial position, we're not getting government grants. We need to lobby for more funding or better equality when it comes to grants. Just because we're in a good position and Wasaga Beach is not, for instance, let's just say that, they may get a grant. We will not.
David?
Can you do the question again?
Sure. If elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our township on a firmer financial footing?
First of all, I'd quit funding vanity projects that run into the 300% over budget range. I'd be more proactive on existing infrastructure, which would, in the long run, prolong the life cycle of that infrastructure. For example, Superior Street, Clarence Street, Jane Street, Huron Street are all crumbling because of crushed culverts and lack of clean ditches, which in turn causes some homeowners to run 2 sump pumps to keep their basements dry. The other thing is we've got 6 halls that need to be brought up to accessibility standards. We can't afford that. Pick 3 and sell the other 3. Thank you.
Yep. We all talk about budget there, but we haven't, as Paul says, you know, we have to find the new sources of income there. Federal, provincial, if we can get the grants and stuff like that, sure. If we can get from the private sector as well, we should be able to see if we can get a partnership from them and expand our budget in a way that we can spend more without even burden on the taxpayers here locally. That way we can, and at the same time we have to have accountability as well there. So what we have there and how to work with that, and in terms of if they're doing it properly or not. And if the job is not done properly, doesn't matter how much money we have, it'll be going to the waste there.
excuse me. In this day and age of 7% inflation, budgeting for the next foreseeable future is obviously going to be very difficult. And I agree with some of my other candidates' scope that we have to think ahead. Like, for instance, the fire department, them standards that are laid down by the province, those trucks have to be replaced every 15 or 20 years. So that can be budgeted long term. And I'm sure we can set up probably a lot of our expenditures to do the same thing. And we can't outspend our expense, or can't outspend our income, which is just plain business sense.
Okay, so I would say it's all in the planning. Once again, prioritizing the must-haves, the we need, and the we want. It's no different than I say to my husband, do you need it or do you want it? Really important. There is a huge difference. Holding accountability. I'm a big fan of tendering out things, getting a big bang for your buck, or as much bang as you can get. And also grants. I know we have several businesses. One of the opportunities I've had for the last 2 decades is being part of TD Friends of the Environment. They will come, they will do cleanup, they will plant trees every year, and they die for people just to say, hey, I've got this field, it's Clearview property, we would like trees planted in it, and we have actually planted the trees in several places in Clearview. So taking advantage of the private sector is a wonderful thing.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198, and you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
I am Dockery. My name means everything.
Tom Longboats!
I am Wolf Clan, Onondaga Nation. I've run many different races. I've run to survive and to be free. I've run to win for honor.
His people might be lazy, but this one's damn fast.
My people respected our runners, people who carried important messages from village to village.
I need a guide to the next post. Dispatch carrier, sir. I can get you there.
God's sakes, man! Slow down. Who do you think I am, Tom Longboat?
No, sir. I am.
Running makes me feel alive. It's everything.
Tom Longboat was the first Indigenous person to win the Boston Marathon. He ran his way to international fame and became an inspiration to generations of athletes.
Focus better.
Heal better.
Sleep better.
Partner better.
Create better. Love better.
Breathe better.
Learn better.
Laugh better. Lead better.
Think better. Work better. Friend better. Unwind better.
Happy better.
Everything gets better when you get active.
So candidate Whitskin brings us into a great segue to our next question. And the question is centered around the community halls. In order to meet provincial legislation regarding accessibility requirements, the township is required to make renovations. The most recent report pegs those renovations at greater than $5.6 million. The current council has decided to move forward. Recent events have created inflationary rates that will surely drive those costs upwards. Council has also made a conscientious decision to not permit public participation. Do you support the program to renovate the 6 small halls, and do you support that without public consultation? I'm not 100% sure that that is an accurate statement, but that is the question that was submitted. Laura?
I support the renovations as well as the accessibility. I do find the budget for that, however, is a little high. I get inflation and everything else, but I would think for that amount of money, we could get a lot of work done. And back to accountability and the last question, I think it all kind of fits together that I want to see where our money's going. We work hard for it, and accountability.
Yeah, it's definitely an unfair statement, I think, to say that community involvement cannot be allowed. That's an absolute must, but it's, in my feel, it's the whole community spirit of volunteerism. All these halls 40, 50 years ago were the vibrant centers of each a little corner of our communities, and we've seen that fade, which is a real tragedy. So I think anything that we can do to try and revive these halls, keep them within standards, has to be done, and I'm sorry to say, probably no matter what the cost.
Yes and no. Yes, in terms of yes, community halls does bring a big challenge. If we're going to go upgrade all at once, we can have them upgraded slowly. So we can, the bigger halls go first, or the smaller hall, wherever we have the most population there, they're being used the most, and then slowly we go with the halls that are not being used as much. But at the same time, yes, we do need all those community halls there for the future there.
In 2016, there, in the Creemore Echo, they had a story about the Evening Hall renovations, and the estimate at that time was $252,000, with the lowest bidder being just over $600,000. Now they've proposed $1.4 million. So by the time the project's done, where will we really be? 5 of the 6 halls require elevators. I'm just wondering what the additional expenses will be to have the TSSA inspection team come in on a monthly or quarterly basis to maintain these said structures. If these halls are so vital, I still haven't heard back from council or staff on why New Lowell was sold off. Thank you.
It's definitely a yes and a no. I think there is value in keeping some of these small halls, but my concern would be whether there's enough volunteers and there's fundraising resources to make them sustainable. I would also like to see a utilization of these halls to see what they look like before making any other decisions. You know, small halls do have a vital role to play in the community, and we need to look at whether it's feasible to continue with all of them.
I'm sort of sitting on the fence on this one. It seems awfully expensive to do the renovations that are necessary. I realize that the small halls are important for the feeling of community. I thought maybe we should have had a referendum years ago on what to do about this and let people decide. So right now, I'm glad we're only doing a couple halls, and we'll go from there.
The halls, we've been talking about the halls for 12 years. And you know what? The price tag doesn't get any smaller. It gets bigger every time. And I think I commend the council that we have to actually put forward a plan in order to implement some of the changes. I have somebody who can't get into the Brentwood Hall, you know, on their own. And I think it's time that we stop milling around and talking about accessibility, because all we're doing is paying lip service. Either we're going to do it with the halls or we're not. But if we're not going to do it, then we're not setting an example for the rest of the organizations within our community to make our community accessible.
I truly cannot believe that the current council had made this decision without public consultation. But in the event that they did, I would probably reopen that and let them talk about it again and hear from the public on the small halls issue before prioritizing it in the lookout budget of the township to see where it falls. It truly does need to be brought up to accessibility standards to be used. but at what cost? In an inflationary world, do we postpone it for a few years until the inflation goes down to a recession and it's cheap to get work done? I don't know.
I am a definite advocate of small halls because they're one of the key things for the small communities. Now, the big thing with the small communities, you got to have the community buy-in. And I'm always, when we go to the different events at the Small Halls Festivals or throughout the years, we go to many a different event. I love it when I see the engagement of the community. And as long as the community is engaging in their halls, I think it's very important that they get the support. Now, at what cost? I don't know where the costs come from. I got to agree, it's a staggering amount of money. Have we used local talent, used local help? You know, in business today, we see the government changing all the requirements day to day, and I understand those costs are going up. So I'm hoping we can make decisions in the very short order to get some of them done. And, you know, I sometimes say where the chips fall, but it's very important to our small communities to support them.
Thank you. I know it's me. Sorry. I'm going to do whatever is possible, whatever is necessary. Sorry, I'm going to do whatever is possible or necessary to see it through. And depending on what council decides and the volunteer groups decide to do, I'm going to do whatever possible to support the small halls.
Yeah, the process has been going on for some time, and at the very beginning, there was certainly doubts whether or not there'd be support from the communities that they represent. It has been a very good engagement process with the hall boards, who are the local volunteers, who are the public that those small halls serve. It's not unlike the relationship that your council will have with each of you in finding out what hand they should raise when they vote on something on a specific issue. The hall boards worked very diligently to do that. They were under a test. They felt that, I think, in terms of the capital that we have to spend against these things. The other thing to remember is not all of Clearview is the same. There are, as I travel through many of our towns, we don't have the same services in every little hamlet as we do in Stayner and Creemore. And we don't have public transportation. And we have people that have lived in a home for years in some of those smaller towns, and the small hall is a place for them to go to build their community, and that's the way we define our identity. In Clearview, we're a community of communities, and you'll have an arm wrestle with somebody that won't identify where they live first before they say what the name of the township is. They're proud in both of them. They're proud of both of them. They like being where they are. The small hall gives them a place to form the part of the community they want and to share that with the rest of the community of Clearview. So I think we've done a good job. It's multi-year, by the way. It's been, and there may be some review going forward, especially for costs or commitments as some of our volunteers get old. But I think we've put a wise plan together, and I support it fully.
Thank you. Well, there's one point that Tom and I are going to disagree on. We are one community, and that's Clearview. But as Deb said, we've been. This is it's not something new. This has been going on for 12 years. And if you're going to have the small halls, they need to be accessible. So, yeah, I support it.
Yeah, thank you. Small halls, we're the heartbeat of the 6 areas we've got. Times have changed, but they're still the heartbeat. We have 3 halls that I'm going to be a little different than the rest here, which I normally am. I see 3 halls that, to me, are very vibrant at this point. Those are the 3 we should be looking at first. We should give the other 3 an opportunity to move forward, because COVID has put things back 2 years. A lot of those halls were really vibrant prior to COVID. COVID came in, their expenses didn't change, but they had no funds coming in. So some of these halls haven't had an opportunity to raise funds. to look ahead. And we've talked about this for 12 years. They haven't had a chance to fundraise because COVID has come in and put things at a standstill. So we need to give those 3 halls that aren't quite as vibrant as 3 that I think are an opportunity to ramp themselves up and show us that they are able to do the same. I am support of the program of all halls. Do the 3 first, and hopefully the other 3 will be able to pick it up and show us that they can do it as well.
Yes, I support the small halls, and I know for a fact that I sit on 2 boards of small halls, and we do fundraise money, and we're willing to contribute to the building of the halls.
Thank you. I think this will be the final question for us this evening. And it's a 2-part question, or no, it's not. It's 2 separate questions. One question is for the incumbents. You're clustered sort of at that end, and I don't know where Deb falls. Have you been there and you want to come back? So you can decide how you want to answer. And the second question is for the new candidates only. So for the incumbents, what is it you completed or accomplished that has made Clearview a better community? For the new candidates, what do you feel is needed to make Clearview a better community for its residents and businesses? So Melanie, you're a new candidate. So what do you feel is needed to make Clearview a better community for its residents and businesses? I'm not coming back to you, so. It has to be something that spurred you to run for council. What do you want to accomplish to make life better for your constituents?
I guess to bring the community together more, have them participate in things.
Excellent, thank you. Incumbent councillor, what is it that you have completed or accomplished that has made Clearview a better community? Now, with 31 years of experience, I think you have a bit of a laundry list. 1 minute.
Oh, that's not very fair, 1 minute. Anyways, the one that is most recent that I would like to talk about is the Clearview Youth Center. 2 of us brought it forward to council. 2 of us talked to council, had the support of council through staff, and have created a youth center. Very positive center. It provides a safe, drug-free, and bully-free, inclusive environment. I got a little story about the open house. I was there, and there was a 12-year-old student that took my wife and I on a tour. I didn't tell him who I was. He was beaming from ear to ear, smiling. My center, he says. He talked to us about the computers and what the computers do for homework and stuff. He talked about the art wall and why they have the art wall. He talked about the guitars and they have guitar lessons. He talked about the commercial kitchen. He was just so ecstatic that it was his youth center. And the other comment he made was, I hear that there's going to be some youth on the board next time, and I think this is awesome. So I think being part of that initial push for the youth center is something that I feel is greatly appreciated, and I just love it. It's a great spot, and it needs to be supported right to the end.
John?
Well, I'm going to start with the library, and I'm not taking credit for the library. It was started long before I became a councillor, but it was nice to see it completed. One of the things I've really tried to work hard on and council is unity, bringing people together. I think it's probably going to be, as has been said before, we work at glacial speed. Ask me in 3 years, I'll tell you all about the increased water supply for Stainer, the sewage capacity for Creemore. All of this stuff is absolutely crucial for any type of managed growth, and that's what we're working at. One thing I guess I did spearhead for a little while was the ATV access for the municipality, and I'm really, well, I'm proud to say that it worked out quite well, and you know, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to hand it to Tom.
Well, for me, it's 2 words: public engagement. There are many things that the past councils, this one and others, have entertained either through motions, myself or others. But the approach, I think, is important. That allows the public to lead on some of these things. Many of the projects, when you look back, came from ideas from the public, and then filtered their way up through their councillor into council. And it wasn't on the staff's agenda. I'm not blaming them. They're busy. It just didn't occur. So I think personally, through the use of town halls and many meetings, whether it's one-on-one or through group sessions, I've tried to encourage people not to be cynical, not to just complain, but be constructive. Bring forward your ideas, and I've learned something through it. And I know councillors, our council has entertained new ideas. Sometimes we approved them, sometimes we didn't, based on funding or whatever. But I think we've made. I think public engagement makes a council work better, and the more open we are, and the more outreach we make, I think is better. And quite frankly, I am proud that I take that approach.
Thank you. I'm going to reiterate the ATV access. During COVID, it has been invaluable to the people over on our side of Clearview. It has given them an opportunity to get out with their families, get out with friends, social distance outside. It has been great when we had no other access to team sports or any other social activities. I want to commend the rest of council on their support for the Clearview Food Bank through COVID. It was a well-supported opportunity, and they also did a great job of supporting other businesses and getting out there and doing that sort of thing just to keep people safe. Like I said before, it was unprecedented times. I personally was approached, and a business owner asked about opening on holidays. We had a bylaw, a prohibitive bylaw here in Clearview. And it was just a matter of housekeeping, but it made a big difference for that business owner, and it gave the opportunity to other business owners whether they wanted it or not. That's the one thing I said to Councillor Lamers was when I was running previously and we were down in New Lowell, there was a family there, and they wanted that four-way stop down on, is it Hogback Road? Hogback Road. And we managed to put that through, and that was a major thing for me. I'm sorry. That family they deserved that. And that was a real emotional thing for me to have us manage to put that through for them. And we also have managed to put down the 10th concession down to 60 kilometers an hour. Hopefully that'll make it safer for all our residents as well that travel through there. Thank you.
So Paul, just to reiterate, what do you feel is needed to make Clearview a better community?
Having sat on economic development and being involved as a business, my thrill or my joy would be to see creation of new jobs. For the last number of years, we have, for the most part, been very much a bedroom community. When, for those of you or us who are up at 5:30 and 6 every morning and you see the cars heading down Airport Road or across 26, I would love to see more employment where we can, and good employment where we can keep, especially our young people in this community. I look at what was done by our previous council at Cashdown Corners, what they bent over and went through to create jobs there. It's phenomenal to see that, and we've got a lot of opportunities with that. We have to engage our entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people in this community have great ideas, and as a small businessman, I love to see them. I mean, I tell people, some of the people I dealt with 30 years ago are now very successful business people who have grown ideas made in Clearview. I think jobs are a critical thing we got to look at. If we create good jobs, we will create money for this community. We will create opportunities for this community.
So again, what would I bring over a period of 4 years? That's the question.
The question is, what do you feel is needed to make Clearview a better community?
Well, my wife calls me a social butterfly. I love to talk. I love to talk to people. And I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, but there are 14,785 people in this township that are. I would truly want to talk to every one of them in my term and bring all the good ideas forward that we could fit in a 4-year term.
Well, in the past, I'd like to say I'm proud of Small Halls Festival. I think it went a long way to bring the communities together and see what we had that was the same and what we had that was different. I think it's great that it's something that's being started again now that we're moving away from COVID. I agree with Paul about the development of jobs, but I do want to remind people about Miller's Dairy, Steer, John Deere, Huron Tractor. All of those things are all developed, and it's about the entrepreneurship of people that live here, and all we have to do is support them.
What is needed to make Clearview better? A number of things, but I only have a minute, so I'll only pick one. And I think we need safer roads. There's a lot more traffic everywhere with all the cars on the road, more traffic through our township. And while I've been campaigning, a number of people have voiced a concern about a number of areas, not just the one intersection I mentioned. So I think we need safer roads.
Sean, can I answer number one? I was never on council, but I was on a board. I was on the library board from 2004 to 2012. My biggest accomplishment, I like to say, is that building next door. We would never have gotten it this far without all the support and being on the board and pushing and shoving and trying to get it done.
I'd like to see more connectivity in the future with sidewalks on a more east to west basis throughout the town. Also, I'd like to see some sort of controlled crosswalk on County Road 42 between Center Street and Beach Street. And I'd also like to talk to the MTO and get a serious conversation going about either lights or a controlled pedestrian crossing by the TD Bank. On the job issue, I'd like to see the roadblocks dropped by the township for a winery, a lavender farm, and the hops expansion in Ottawa. I don't know why they cry about no jobs here, and then they just put up all kinds of red tape for them to fight over.
Yep. Safety, as I said earlier, is my first concern there. The safety for crossing the kids from Highway 26 and North Street. I need a sidewalk, crossword traffic light there. Same thing as John says on the Brock Street and 26 where the TD Bank is. That area is pretty crowded there as well. And in the medium term, another thing is more education about opioid use there. We do have a major issue going on there in Simcoe Muskoka Health District there, and we are part of it, and we have to work together to educate kids and adults the use of it and to put more funding towards it. And in the long run, that's future, way future, bring GO Train, bring all those cities together, so less traffic on the roads there. That way, people can commute to bigger cities and work there and enjoy the country living here as well.
Being the agricultural guy, I want to really enforce that we support our agriculture community. It's the largest income or economic activity in the township, so we need to support agribusiness, anything that can be done to keep more dollars here rather than going to a secondary processor outside the township. So that's one key thing that I'd like to accomplish in this term.
I'm lucky because I get to go last.
I'm last.
Oh, sorry. After me, you come first. The way I see it, and taking a little bit of ownership, one of the best ways to do things for Clearview is we, as a council, need to work as a team that is willing and able to get things done.
Maybe she does have the last word. All right. So we did have a couple of other questions, but I think in the essence of time, I think your platforms and your interest in this municipality and in the workings of our government has really come out to the constituents. And I congratulate you on making this effort to sit on council. It does take time, it takes commitment, it takes sacrifice from not only you and your families, but it strains friendships, and people that love you today might not necessarily like you tomorrow. So be prepared for that, and I wish you all luck. To reiterate, voting opens on Monday, October 3rd. Look for correspondence in the mail. If you do not get it, go into the township and see the election team. They're very, very interested in making sure that everyone and anyone can and has the opportunity to vote. I want to thank and remind you that some of our school board trustee candidates, Heather Evie, Douglas Yeaman, Sean Cooper, and Brandy Rafiq, are here. If you have any questions with regards to our education system and their platforms and things that they want to bring forward, I think education and the facilities within our municipality are important. It was addressed, we have at least two school board facilities in this municipality that are now dormant. Duntroon and Bing Public School. I think Bing Public School could be an incredible impetus to deal with the housing shortage and accessible, affordable, and seniors housing in their downtown core. So having a strong school board trustee that can spearhead some of that negotiation with developers and municipality and province, etc., I think could be very important over the next number of years. So please speak with the school board trustees and find out their positions on things within our municipality. To Kelly and Katie, big round of applause. For putting on tonight's event. Their biggest flaw was asking me to moderate, so we'll leave that with them. And I want to thank you very much. Please take the time to mill about and talk, address specific questions to your candidates, and please get out and vote. Thank you very much.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response Line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
I'm Mallory, and I was walking home one night when an impaired driver hit me. He had been overserved in 2 bars before getting behind the wheel. If the